The Friday Rugby Preview with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview on Rugby Radio, where we look ahead to the club rugby season in Scotland from a Borders perspective. And in the show I'm joined by Dale Clancy. And Dale, let's have a quick look at what happened last week. Rather incredible scorelines, Premiership stroke Border League matches. Hawick 61, Kelso 7, Selkirk 65, Jed Forest 35. Not a bad place to start.
Yeah, if you like tries, the Premiership and Border clashes was where it was at the weekend. Obviously we were covering the Selkirk Jed Forest game at Philip Hawke, and it was an interesting game for the first 20 minutes, and it was a clash of styles, but eventually I think the expansive play and the skill set that Selkirk had behind the scrum perhaps paid dividends and allowed them to get to areas of the park which punished Jed, who obviously started brightly. You know, the opening 25 minutes they were really robust and looked pretty good with the ball in hand, but just not able to sustain that for 80 minutes. And then obviously one of the big games as well in the Premiership was Hawick versus Kelso, which was a really one-sided game, with Hawick showing a great response after a defeat on the road against Mar. Kelso had a great start to the season as well, 2 draws, but obviously on the wrong end of a bit of a scalping at Mansfield Park. So that tees things up nicely for both clubs for this weekend in terms of how they approach their games. But 60-point wins for two of the sides in the Borders.
And in National 1, it was Melrose 36, Biggar 0 at Hartlepool, and Gala lost by 5 points but did get 2 bonus points at GHK 31, Gala 26, that ended. And in National 2, it was a loss for Berwick at Scremerston by 48 points to 35 against Falkirk, but a win for Peebles, 28-15 at home to Stirling County. In East 1, Langham won at Forester, 32 points to 30. East 2, it was a loss for Duns at home to Hawick Lindeen, 25-22 there. Hawick Quins 21, Livingston 12, that's in East 2 of course as well. And in East 3, Earlston got their third win on the bounce. Well done to them at Inverleith, 40 points to 12. So let's have a quick look at this week. It's the Premiership. Hawick take that big winning form on the road to Edinburgh Accies. And let's hear from head coach Matty Douglas.
Well, looking back to last weekend, it was a great 80-minute performance. I think it was what we needed. I spoke in terms of on the build-up to it, that I thought we trained extremely well through the week, and the kind of mental side and their attitude was bang on, and that showed on Saturday. We were relentless for the first whistle. I felt we never took our foot off the gas, and in terms of attack, we were direct, we had a lot of intent in it, and we actually played some really good rugby and scored some quality tries. Some tries where we, some came from our own 22, which was great to see. I thought, in terms of unit-wise, forwards and backs were exceptional. I know Lewis and Graham were extremely happy with what they saw, and individually were bang on. Great to see like Andrew Mitchell and Lee Armstrong back to their best. It was, a great team performance, but big thing for us we spoke about this week is backing it up and getting back on the road. Just drilling a bit of confidence into them heading to Accies this weekend. We've got another full squad to pick from. Russell Anderson will come back into selection, along with Connor Sutherland, who missed out last week through injury. So we've got a few boys back that will scratch our heads as we've got a lot of boys training. And again, we'll look at a top quality squad to head to Edinburgh on Saturday.
Matty Douglas, head coach of Hawick. Now, of course, they're at Raeburn Place, Edinburgh Accies, where they got that very narrow victory last season. Then, of course, from there they went on and became invincible.
I think last year's the rhetoric that we were kind of saying about Hawick was slightly different as to what we can chat about over the last fortnight. Hawick last year were a completely different animal. Looked like they were never ever going to be beaten. This last fortnight has been going to be a real test of character for them to see, where they're at as a squad, and if they can back it up again and go and challenge for the championship. So, obviously off the back of a defeat against Mar, they reacted brilliantly with a huge win against Kelso, which is not an easy game, in terms of a border derby against a team who are on the up. They were able to make it look relatively easy, but now is a real challenge at Rayburn Place. Can they go there? Can they go away from home and back up a sizable victory that they had and really stamp their authority on the league and say, look, we might have had a little blip in the road against Mar, but we're still up there with Curry at the moment, and we want to be up there to contend for this championship.
Selkirk, after that big win against Jed Forest, now have to go to Fullerton Park, where Mar, of course, beat Hawick a couple of weeks ago.
I think after that result, Selkirk have shown that they're able to score tries. That's not a question about their squad, that they can score tries and they can put themselves in the right area of the park. It's being able to play against these really difficult big teams. But Mar are one of those teams that are really effective at utilising their forwards and creating that space for their backs. They're dangerous in the backs. They're really accurate up front as well. They're set piece ticks. They've got all the attributes to be one of the contenders. They're not going up there as favourites. They're going up there to try and build off the back of a good performance last weekend. If they get a win, if they get points, that's great. That's good momentum. But Mar are certainly, at home as well, a stuffy team.
They are, of course, Mar's bogey team.
Selkirk, they had great form on the road last year, so they challenged a lot of those teams. But I just think that, new campaign, Mar were a shadow of themselves last season compared to what they were the season before. They were really intimidating the season before, but last year you felt they had that little bit of a soft underbelly because a lot of players went on to Super Series stuff. So, Mar have taken stock of that. New coaching setup as well. Yeah, I think it's a big job for Selkirk to go there and pick up a victory.
Well, let's hear what Sesh Henderson has to say, head coach of Selkirk.
Obviously, we're really pleased to get the win. We scored some really good team tries. It's built a bit of confidence to our attack. Some good individual performances as well. So, on the flip side of that, a bit disappointed how we looked a couple of scores early doors after losing possession deep in our 22. But we're working hard at training during the week just to tighten up a few parts of our game. Going into this week's game against Mar, which will be a tough away game, but really good challenge for us, and we're keen to come away with something for these games to build more confidence.
Sesh Henderson, Selkirk's head coach, and they're away at Fullerton Park to play Mar. Jed Forest, on the other hand, they've got home comforts at Riverside Park against Musselburgh, and they'll obviously be wanting to bounce back after that defeat at Philip Hawke. One of the coaching staff there is David Grieve.
Last weekend we played Selkirk. It was a pretty disappointing result. We felt everything that could go wrong went wrong, but on the positive side we got a bonus point of 5 well-worked tries. This weekend we played Musselburgh. It's a huge opportunity for us to right a few wrongs. We've got 2 or 3 experienced players back as well, so we're hoping for a more positive result.
David Grieve, Jed Forest's coach, and they're taking on Musselburgh. It's going to be a tough one for them.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think Jed will be glad they're back at Riverside. I think obviously I spoke up the fixture last week between Selkirk and Jed quite a lot, even before the game and during the coverage. I thought it was, it's a really, really important fixture. I think that was me with my border glasses on though as well, in terms of knowing the clubs as well as I do. This is, in terms of league position, this is equally as important for both sides because they're towards the foot of the table. Jed Forest will be hoping to make home advantage count, and in the week that they've had, they'll have learnt a lot of lessons off that big defeat at Selkirk because they had a lot to work on defensively. Again, they're a side, there's no question about their attacking abilities. When they've got the ball in hand, they look like a dangerous side, but when they're without the ball, they look almost a bit, they work in pockets. So once they get that cohesion through their defensive line, I think they'll steady the ship. But it's a difficult league. If you've not got the squad depth, it's going to be hard, and I feel that's where Jed are at the moment.
Kelso have to bounce back after that big defeat at Mansfield Park. Let's hear from Director of Rugby, Neil Hinnigan.
That performance wasn't acceptable, and the players know that, and we're not even having to drill that home to them. They know that. The senior guys that are here know what's expected of them, and we need to try and pick ourselves up and put it right this weekend. So training Tuesday night has been good workout and a fair bit of contact and trying to get a bit of the basics sorted out. I think the main thing we need to work on, which is fairly obvious, is defence. So, in all 3 matches we've conceded more points than we'd like to. We'll look to tighten that up out wide and obviously through the middle as well where it matters, but the forwards have got to step up this week and at least at minimum match Hawks, and then our backs have got to do the same. So from 1 to 15, whoever's on the park at that point is going to have to try to get the better of their opposite man so that overall we can have a good all-round performance and get the 4 points that we crave out of this game, or 5 if we can, to try and get ourselves up that table. Changes wise, we've got fairly settled enough squad. Did pick up a couple of knocks last week, but Keith Melbourne makes obviously a welcome return. He got a half last week off the bench. We welcome Liam Tate into the starting lineup. He's been sort of on the bench for the first 3 games, and he's now knocking on the door, so he gets his opportunity. In the backs, we welcome back Greg Punton to the fray, so he brings a lot of experience, and we feel that's what we need with some of the younger guys we've got. So a few changes, but nothing too serious. And we hopefully get a big crowd down to cheer the boys on, try and get back on the road.
So Kelso taking on Glasgow Hawks, but they are back at Poynter Park, and that'll be a relief for them. But no Dwayne Patterson. Yeah,
Dwayne's a big miss. He's obviously a really classy rugby player, versatile as well. Still young, so obviously an injury picked up during the week is going to be a huge blow to Kelso, because he's a player that they rely on. But it's a squad game. Dwayne Patterson has not dragged Kelso up from National 1 into the Premiership. It's been other players as well, and Kelso will be looking at those players to step up on Saturday and be counted, because against Glasgow Hawks, they're a side that have went through a bit of a transition, so there's going to be weekends that they're completely going to click and they're going to sweep teams aside, but there are going to be weekends when they maybe just do not gel as well as the coaching staff would like, and Kelso will be hoping at Poynter that's one of those weekends.
Can't ignore the top of the table clash in the Premiership, of course. In Edinburgh, it's going to be Curry in first place against Heriot's Blues, but what's interesting here is that Curry have a huge points difference of, I think it's 115, and Heriot's +9.
Yeah, Curry have been probably the form team in the national leagues. They've started off with some challenging games, but they've been pretty consistent with the results. They've scored a lot of points and they've conceded little. So Curry have got off to a great start. Heriots have equally got off to a great start as well, because they had a really horrific start to the Premiership last season, but they've obviously been able to learn from that and push on towards the top. So yeah, Curry Heriots, Edinburgh clash. You look at the league as well; it's dominated by the Edinburgh teams up towards the top. So I'm sure the border teams will be wanting to try and claw their way back up towards the top of the division. Certainly Hawick.
Well, we concentrated on the Premiership last week with 2 double headers. We had obviously the Hawick Kelso game, Selkirk against Jed Forest, and the whole thing, 168 points between the 2 matches, which is so unlike a border derby in the past, but certainly there were plenty of tries, 25 of them in all in those 2 games. But this week we're concentrating on National 1. We're coming live from the Greenyards for the first time this season. Melrose against Ayr. Melrose in second place at the moment, Ayr in first. But let's concentrate on Melrose Ayr first of all. We'll hear from head coach Ian Chisholm.
Full credit to our players, especially our leaders. They've really brought an energy, and I think there's really clear messaging here that's been driven by Bruce Colvin, and he's talking about every session. He's just reminding us about how each week is a process leading into games. Tuesday comes, then the Thursday comes, and the Saturday comes, and it's fitting all the bits in between, from gym to analysis to rehab and prehab, and it's really clear that that's the mindset now. And after 2 really positive performances, I'm really pleased with where we are and the focus and the edge that we've got at training that's transferring into games as well. And look, I think over the last couple of weeks, they'll remember our attack from both the GHK and the bigger games. But for me, it's our defence, and that's really allowed us to go up the pitch and do that. And that won't change this weekend against Ayr. We know they're danger men. We know how they want to play, but we're at home. We've just beat bigger 36-0 at Hartree Mill, and we seem to have a bit about us at the minute.
So Melrose Ayr, historically, this is always the big fixture, isn't it?
Obviously we've seen a lot of historic games between Melrose and Ayr of old, in the Premiership, in cup finals, fighting towards the top of the Premiership. But this is the new version of both of these teams. But I think that the fixture now has got equally as much importance towards the top of National 1. Melrose at home. It's paramount that Melrose get a result at the weekend, because you do feel that if Ayr are able to come down to the Borders and get a victory over Melrose, then it might be difficult to try and reel them back in. It was a great game last year as well. Obviously a game that Melrose perhaps should have won and lost at the end after a great fight back from Ayr, but Melrose will be well drilled in terms of what's expected of them come the weekend.
On to Gala against Biggar then, and let's hear from Director of Rugby at Gala, Ewan Swinton.
For this week against Biggar, we will have Murray Wilson back in the team. He didn't quite make it last week. Cameron Pate will come back into the reckoning. Remains to be seen whether he'll make the team this week, but we'd certainly expect to see him in the reckoning to play in the first 15 fairly soon. Angus Dunn is on call for calving, unfortunately, so we may be missing him on Saturday. But we have good backups. Biggar are always a hard, strong team to play against. They give us a tough time at Netherdale on a regular basis. They're strong in the forwards, but we now have a forward coach in place for the first time this season. We have appointed Ewan Robbie to take on that role at the club, and we're hopeful of a huge improvement in the set piece. We've been showing a certain lack of accuracy and conviction in the forwards. We just haven't been secure in our own ball in either the line out or the scrum, and in our general forward play we just haven't been quite on it. There's every reason to think that with Ewan's input and his expertise coming into play and encouraging the boys, just giving them the benefit of his experience, that we'll see huge improvements in scrum, line out and general forward play, and that will come through and help us to achieve a more steady level of strong performance, and results will follow from that. So lots to be optimistic about in our forward play for the future and the impact that will have on our results. So we're delighted to have you and Robbie on board. The boys will give it everything they've got and we'll see how it comes out, but again I'm feeling pretty positive about a good outcome on Saturday.
So the news from Netherdale, they have a new forwards coach for the first time this season, and it's Ewan Robbie from Selkirk.
Yeah, obviously it's an appointment which has just been announced on Wednesday this week, and both clubs, Selkirk, have just obviously said thanks for his contribution over the last few years, and obviously Gala have announced that he's the new forwards coach. So just not a far distance down the A7 for Ewan Robbie to travel from Selkirk to Gala, but he brings with him a lot of experience. He's been to a few clubs in Scottish Club Rugby, Peebles and Murrayfield Wanderers, along with Selkirk. So obviously he's going to bring a lot of experience and different ideas to this Gala team, who are a real local team, I think, in terms of the players and the coaching staff that they've got there. So sometimes having somebody who's just over the hedge a little bit can bring a fresh look at things.
International 2 and Peebles unbeaten this season.
They've got off to a really good start, obviously picking up a big win at home against Stirling County last weekend, but this weekend that probably matters. They've got a really, really tough run of fixtures, but going away from home this weekend against the side that they're playing is going to be a real leveller in terms of where Peebles are at this season.
Let's hear from the head coach, Graham Patterson.
Yeah, so 3 games out in the season, and we're really pleased with the progress that we've made. Introduced quite a number of young players into this squad, and they've really stepped up to the mark, which is a great testament to how they've done. Looking ahead to Falkirk again, we've got another tough game. So as I've said previously, playing these 3 kind of top sides in Stirling, Falkirk and Lastwade on the bounce is probably a good thing for us. I think it focuses the mind for that period. It means that we have to be, there's no off weeks, and we know we have to be again on the top of our game to be able to stand a chance of winning and also taking something positive from the game. They seem to always have a good kicking game. We'll adjust our plan slightly for that in terms of being prepared for it. Whether it comes to fruition or not, that will be on the day, depending what the circumstances and the conditions are, although they look to be fairly decent conditions for Saturday at the moment. A couple of guys are unavailable through injury and being away this weekend, and Jay Copeman's picked up another shoulder injury or a recurrence of the shoulder injury. He was just coming back into fitness, having played for the Reds, the second team on the Friday night. Unfortunately, he's aggravated that, so he won't be considered. Neil Horgarth is also nursing a wee hamstring injury, so he's out of contention again. And Murdo Anderson's unavailable this week. But we do welcome back a few guys. Davy Collins, after a long-term injury, he's hoping to get back into contention. Buster Davidson, John Napier and our vice-captain Jack Harrison as well is hopefully back in the mix as well to be considered for selection. So we'll pick the side that's going to be the best for playing against Falkirk and the threats that they offer, and also the ones that are going to give us the best opportunities to score tries as well and win the game.
Graham Patterson, get the feeling with Graham that this is a side that's really building.
Yeah, they are. They are a side that got a lot of local talent. They had 20 players in the squad last weekend. 19 of them have come through the Peebles system, which that's probably something that has been needed for a few years now. It has taken a shake up in the landscape of club rugby to have that. But they've got a real town identity, a lot of classy players. They've got some weaknesses in their team that they know of, and they're trying to bring a few young players through, like say Ross Wolfenden, looking to try and bring him through and nurture him into the senior phase. Peebles against Falkirk, it's going to be a huge challenge for them on the road to keep their unbeaten start to the season.
Berwick, they're on the road as well to Lasswade. They've had some ding-dong battles over the years in various divisions, and Lasswade certainly have started the best of the two teams this season, and they're at home.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You look at the league table, and Lasswade have started 3 from 3 again, alongside Falkirk and Peebles. So, those three teams have got off to a really good start, but it will start to separate after this weekend, in terms of that top of the table clash between Falkirk and Peebles. But Berwick, they certainly don't go into that game as favourites. Lasswade at home, they'll be well drilled, they'll be well versed in terms of, what's expected of them in this game. They're difficult at home anyway, but they've picked up a really good result on the road last weekend, so they'll have the confidence. Berwick, on the other hand, have been tested against somebody of the Lasswade calibre, so they're probably coming into this prepared, because against Falkirk, that's the sort of level that this league at the top of the table has been set in, and Berwick were able to put a lot of points onto Falkirk last weekend, albeit they were at home. But it's another big task for Berwick this weekend on the road to Lasswade.
Let's hear then from Berwick coach Paul Pringle.
Moving forward from the game last weekend against Falkirk, where not only was it a very frustrating game, but actually a really disappointing performance from the lads, where we just didn't execute on anything that we worked on during the week. So we've worked on quite a lot this week. We want to put things right, and we've got a really tricky tie on the road to Lasswade. We have had a number of really close games against Lasswade over the last couple of seasons. Fortunately, we've been on the right side of most of those results, but we are expecting it to be a really tough one on Saturday. They've been going particularly well in the league, whereas we've probably been struggling a little bit more, but got almost a full squad out. We welcome back Mason Emery. That's really going to help with the line out, which did struggle during the game against Falkirk. And then over and above that, it's really the same 18, maybe a late fitness test for Jordan Jackson, but apart from that, I think we're pretty strong. One of the things that we will want to really clarify this week is tackle height law with the referees. Unfortunately, we're seeing wide-ranging interpretation of the rules over the last couple of games, from the warm-up games in pre-season, where it was very much below the sternum, and this was applied quite strictly, to last week, where on review, I think potentially we had 15 or so tackles which were above sternum height but weren't penalised. And speaking to the ref after the game, there does seem to be a slight different interpretation of that law now. So unfortunately, it means we're going to have to clarify with the referee before each game, and that's kind of that ambiguity I thought was where we'd moved away from. But to make sure we prepare the lads as best as possible, it is something that we're going to have to do. This is obviously not an issue that's just exclusive to ourselves, so we fully expect other teams will be doing the same thing, and really we just need to look after the things that we can control, and that's the message that we've conveyed to the lads. So we'll do another full train session Thursday night, make sure the lads are prepared, and really be up for that game on Saturday against Lasswade, which I'm sure it'll be a fairly feisty affair going over the past couple of seasons, but one we'd really hope to come out on the right side of and really kickstart our season now.
Into East 1 then, and Langham have had 2 wins out of 3 so far, including one on the road at Forrester last weekend, and they're on the road to Haddington, and I caught up with Captain Nathan Smith. So Nathan, 2 wins out of 3. How did yesterday go? It was another close one.
Yeah, first half yesterday went probably some of the best stuff I've ever seen us play, and then second half, when we had the wind, was some of the worst stuff I've seen us play. We just kind of went to sleep. I think we broke through the line too easy, and thought we could play from anywhere. So we managed to see it out just, but frustrating. But we'll take 5 points on the road any day.
You're certainly scoring the points, though, aren't you? Even in the first game, you scored 33 of them.
Yeah, that first game just took us 10-15 minutes to get going, but now seeing what the teams are like in this league, I think we'll be fine. Majority of them are big packs and stuff, so we can move them around, and our game's always been about moving it wide and scoring tries, so it seems it's going to be the same in this league.
So East League 1, the next step is National Rugby. That must be the aim.
Yeah, we're not getting too ahead of ourselves. This is a step up now, and we'll go again from then. Like I say, we're just enjoying moving on up through the leagues, and I'm enjoying leading that way. So
game number 4 this week?
Yeah, we're at Haddington away again this week. A couple of injuries from last week. Eddie Turner's taken a bad knee injury, so that's a blow for us, but we're confident every time we go away, home or away. We have the same team every week, so we're confident we can go and get points away from home.
And that's important, isn't it? Because not many teams can do that.
No, especially in this league, it seems teams don't like to travel away from home, especially down to Langham, so we're looking at it as you get all your home wins and try and pick up points away from home as much as we can and see where we are at the end of the season.
Nathan Smith, a good start for the season there for Langham, in a higher division, of course, this year.
Yeah, I think the first game that they played, they perhaps were just a little bit nervous and apprehensive about the step up in standard, obviously going up to East League 1. But then we're able to back that up with a couple of good results. And again, Haddington on the road, it's a challenging place to go. But this isn't the Haddington of old when they were in Division 2 or up towards the higher ends of national rugby. This is regional rugby now, and that Haddington team, I'm sure Langham will be thinking, are there to be beaten.
Into East League 2, Hoyk Lindeen are on the road at Kirstorfen, and Hoyk Quins at Dalkeith, and Duns away to Dunbar. So all our teams on the road there.
It's been one of those seasons as well. The teams have had a little bit of an indifferent start. Nobody really been able to set the heather alight so far. Especially Quins have found things quite difficult over the last few weeks. But obviously Lindeen and Duns, they clashed last weekend with Lindeen coming out on top in a tight battle. So they'll be wanting to take a bit of momentum into their game away from home.
Let's hear now from Hoyk Quins player Adam Hall.
We're looking forward to the trip to Dalkeith this week. We expect a tough game. Dalkeith have had some good results this season, particularly last week against Dunbar, who'd went 2 from 2. The one blip Dalkeith have had was down here against the Lindeen, but other than that, they've had some big results, and we expect probably them to be one of the teams at the top end of the table come the end of the season. We are looking at building last week's good performance against Livingston. We'll have plenty of changes to the squad once again. It tends to be the case, especially for away trips, but the squad that travels, I'm sure I'll put up a good fight and try and come away with a result and get another victory on the board.
No match for Earlston this weekend because Liberton have withdrawn from East League 3, but Cammy Hill, their head coach, brought us up to date with his team's unbeaten league season so far.
Last weekend we travelled to Inverleith for our first away game of the season, which we came away with a good 40 points to 12 win. I'd asked the lads to bring our game plan or structure into it more, especially after last week. And it was pleasing to see that they did do that. We were 21-5 up at half-time and looking pretty comfortable with ball in hand and defensively. Going into second half, we were really hoping, playing with the slope and the wind, that we could open up a bigger lead and kind of see the game out. But for a 10-minute period, we fell asleep and Inverleith really came into the game. There were some really good individual hits and double hits, but it was only going to be a matter of time before they crossed the line. And unfortunately, they did and brought the score into 21-12. At this point, we could see that their pack was slightly tiring after what they had put in there. So we made some changes, and over a 15-minute period, we were able to score a further 19 points and take the game out of sight. Overall, pleasing performance, and taking a bonus point away from home is a big plus. But we need to stay focused for a full 80 minutes, because teams will punish us if we switch off at any point. We don't have a fixture this week due to Liberton's unfortunate withdrawal from the league, but we're building over the next few weeks so that we're ready for the Gala YM game. And hopefully we can continue a great start to the season.
And with Earlston not having a game this weekend, that leaves Gala YM, who go on the road to Peffermill to play Edinburgh University Medics. So we're live on Rugby Radio from 2:30 tomorrow, coming to you direct from the Green Yards for Melrose against Ayr. We'll have television highlights of that game as well, and also Gala versus Biggar over the weekend on Borders Rugby Television. And don't forget to check out our new Scottish Club Rugby podcast, which is now out. There's a new website at rugbyradio.co.uk, as well as our main site, of course, for everything to do with Borders Rugby at bordersrugby.net. Do check it all out, and we'll see you on Rugby Radio tomorrow at 2:30. But for now, from Dale and me, a very good evening.